Y'all ready for this? Welcome to Sports Kid Drama Kid. I'm Jim. I'm the Sports Kid.
I'm Andi. I'm the Drama Kid.
And today, Andi,
Can I?
based on what I'm wearing,
Can I guess? I was literally like, can I guess what I was like, tell me when you start because I want to guess what it is based on the fact that you have your golf shirt.
My only golf shirt.
Your one golf shirt.
Yep, I bought this golf shirt to go golfing
In the Northwoods of Wisconsin.
years ago. I golfed as a kid, but
And as a teen.
and as a high schooler, yeah. I wanted to start by asking you, Andi, what do you know about the game of golf, as in like how it's played and stuff like that?
The only things I know about golf I know are from you, from all the inane questions that I have asked you while golf is on. I know that there's 18 holes if you play a full day of golf.
Round.
9 if you want to just get out of there.
Chill.
After
Yeah.
after a half day. There's a green and a fairway, which are not the same thing, or they are the same thing. It's
No.
like rectangles and squares. Right?
Sort of.
So you play 18 holes or 9 holes. There's all different kinds of clubs that you use depending on what kind of hit you want to do. Sometimes you're going for distance and sometimes you're trying to just tap it in.
Sometimes you're going for speed.
Are you?
That was a reference to the song Going the Distance.
Oh. Okay. You have a caddy with you who's like your buddy who like helps you strategize.
Yep, he's a really good friend that helps you decide what to do.
And what else? You can hit it in, there's different elements like sand and water.
Yep. Like Pokemon.
I know less about Pokemon than I do about golf, and I know very little about golf. What else do I know? Oh, there's words for things like birdie and eagle, and is eagle one of them?
Yep.
And
That's
like
just the different amounts under the par that you are.
oh right,
on a
and
hole.
yeah, like the scoring is its own whole thing.
All right, I'm going to stop you now because for today's episode, we actually don't really need to know anything about how golf is played.
Great. Well, that's good because you've answered a lot of questions over the years and I haven't retained a lot of that knowledge.
Yeah.
So.
I just asked to set a baseline. So there's a number of dramatic, crazy golf stories that can be told about the actual game of golf. Tiger Woods has a crazy story that I'm sure we'll eventually get to. Phil Mickelson, another famous golfer of our time, that has a crazy story. But this story is about the big picture. It's a drama of long-standing feuds, money, and bureaucratic bullshit between old white guys.
Old white guys love that stuff.
Are you ready?
It's really their wheelhouse. Yes, I am ready.
Yeah, so not necessarily about...
4. Isn't that what you say when you're like ready to golf? 4. No?
Yeah, when you're ready to golf. We'll leave it at that.
You're laughing, but I don't know what I did wrong. So continue.
So I'm just going to go into this little thing that I prepared.
I love your monologues. Go for it.
We're going to go way back to 1916. It's the middle of World War I. Woodrow Wilson is elected president, and he's about to end U.S. neutrality and get his country involved in the aforementioned World War I. The Berlin Summer Olympics have just been canceled because the Germans needed all of their javelin throwers to toss hand grenades in World War I. In New York City, a mere 4,000 miles across the Atlantic, from active trench warfare, a man named Rodman Wanamaker, heir to the Philadelphia Wanamakers. Do you know them?
Yeah, department stores.
Yep.
I'm familiar.
Invited a group of spiffy, influential men to a luncheon on the 9th floor restaurant in the Wanamaker department store building. In the Tableau Club, over 2 tiered sandwiches and 3 lunchtime gin fizzes apiece, this group of sauced-up slicers met to determine the fate of America's grass. While no doubt harassing a waitress for their 4th round of martinis, Wanamaker and his collection of golf enthusiasts were thinking about tee times instead of landmines, bogeys instead of bayonets, tournaments instead of tourniquets. And when the olive settled, they had come up with an idea so great they wouldn't need to think about World War I, at least until a mortar shell landed in the 17th fairway. Because it was on this day, a group of drunk drivers of the golf ball and Ford Model Ts, probably, developed the idea for the Professional Golf Association of America, now known as the PGA.
What? Are you serious?
Yep. That's the founding story
My God.
of the PGA.
So much of America and history in general is like this horrible thing was going on, but we decided to have a really nice lunch and talk about something else.
What if we had a pro golf league?
What? Like we're about to enter one of the most pivotal wars. Oh my God.
So I thought that was a fitting start to a story of very much privilege.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense given golf.
Yep. So the PGA Tour, like I said, was founded in 1916 as the Professional Golfers Association of America.
So people were already playing golf.
People were playing golf.
Recreationally.
Recreationally. There were a number of high-profile independent golf tournaments being hosted in the U.S., and the PGA meeting or whatever was sort of to unify them and be like, hey, we should get our ducks in a row. We should make a legitimate professional thing out of this because we like it. A lot of people like it.
We should mobilize in order to get organized to be golfing.
An infantry with sand wedges. So this tour, the PGA sort of Golfers Association of America, was to unite all these tournaments that already existed and sort of form a professional circuit for golf. Throughout the 1920s and the 30s, a bunch of states started hosting their own state-sponsored golf tournaments, and then many of these were folded in to the PGA tournament series of things.
Okay.
In 1929, things were formalized and a bureaucracy was put in place in the form of a tournament committee that would sort of formalize the tournaments into an actual schedule.
I should know this, but when did World War I end?
1918.
Oh, it was short. I'm sorry. I meant our involvement in it was short.
It had been going on for a while.
Yes. I'm sorry. I meant
it was short.
The American involvement.
Fast forwarding to the 1960s, or jumping ahead a bit here.
Okay.
There's an increase in TV coverage of the tour, which meant more money was coming from advertisers, and this is the first sort of drama between players and the league. The players wanted more money to go into the prize pools for the tournaments, and the PGA wanted it to go toward growing the game at a local level in a sort of charitable sense to just generally promote golf.
I see.
As like a sport.
People on the PGA as professional golfers, were they getting paid the way athletes get paid, or did they only get paid when they won the prize money?
To this day, there's no like contract in the PGA Tour.
Oh, do they just make money off of like brand sponsorships? They make money off of
sponsorships, and the tournaments pay prize pools, which is what they were talking about at this time.
That's why they're always wearing so much like branded gear.
Yeah. But the prize pools have these large like purses, they call them, that are tiered. Like first place gets the most all the way on down to like pretty far down. So like you get some money for showing up and doing well in tournaments, but you don't get guaranteed money. So this was sort of the beginning of them talking about that with the people running the league.
Okay.
The initial drama came to a head in 1968 when PGA Tour professionals complained tournament golfers could make a living on tournaments alone and didn't feel like the PGA was representing their interests as like independent contractors. And basically, they didn't want to do this other stuff, like generally promoting the game.
Sounds like a great time to unionize.
Yeah. And they wanted their rights to their personas and the right to make outside money. Essentially, like you're saying, like put,
Yeah,
State Farm on their hat.
I mean, I have to imagine, did these men also have like other jobs?
Yeah, I think a lot of the early tour pros also worked at golf courses and helped run golf courses.
Oh, so they're like artists today.
Yeah.
They're like today's artists who are like, I'm exceptionally good at my art and I'm well known for it. And also, I'm a computer programmer for Grubhub, which I hate.
So the PGA pros decided to form their own league and defect. And they called that the American Professional Golfers, or APG.
The same letters rearranged. Are you serious? Nah, no one has ever accused old white men of being creative.
Why don't we just mix them around and then come up with names for that? So this didn't last very long. After several months in December of 1968, the APG players agreed to a compromise, and they abolished their new league and went back to the PGA. But they had a stipulation that they would basically be in a tournament players division that was fully autonomous and had representation on a board with some of the other people.
I see. Okay.
So kind of union-y. They basically were like, we control our own destiny. We are a separate organization, but it's like a business. It's a separate business. And I wanted to just have you read a little bit of a newspaper article from 1968.
Okay.
And you can read this. And I just thought it was ironic given my setup.
Oh my God. Peace treaty ends pro-golf war. The Professional Golfers Association and the American Professional Golfers have put down their war clubs. Put down your swords and beat them into putters. Have put down their war clubs and decided to tee off together again on pro golf's multi-million-dollar tour. The two organizations shook hands Friday evening on an agreement ending a dispute that threatened to send the 52-year-old PGA and the touring pros their separate ways on separate tours. Neither the PGA nor the breakaway APG claimed victory in the settlement. Quote, I wouldn't call it a victory for the APG, said Gardner Dickinson, APG president. We didn't go into this looking for a victory. We sought agreement by eliminating the sources of the disagreement. I'm glad that golfers have always been named things like Gardner Dickinson.
Agree to disagree is what they formally came to.
Yeah.
So the settlement returns the touring players to the PGA and ends their plans to establish a separate tour. And then, they have this new sort of power where they get to dictate their own personas and they dictate the tournaments and kind of how that all works.
Okay. Good for them.
Here's another thing in just naming idiocy. So in 1975, the name of the tournament players division business that's like running alongside the PGA of America decides to call itself the PGA Tour. Officially. So this is confusing, so I'm just going to try to explain it. I have it written down here. There are two separate entities in golf now. The PGA of America and the PGA Tour. But they're totally separate things that sometimes interact on a couple tournaments.
Why is you explaining the inception of all of this as confusing and boring as you explaining golf? Do people who like golf not like joy? Like, this is so frustrating.
The PGA Tour is the group of professional players and the tournaments that make up the majority of a golf season. Yeah. That is that breakaway league and representation of the players. The PGA of America is like a network of local club pros. So like any golf course that you really go to has a tour pro that runs the course and is also good at golf, gives lessons, and they have a PGA of America membership for being a certain level good. Every golf
club has one of those?
Almost every golf course you go to has a club pro who is registered with the PGA of America.
That's probably not a bad gig.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's funny the difference between, again, we're talking about PGA of America, guys who run golf clubs, and PGA Tour, guys who are on TV playing for millions.
Also, the fact that clubs means two different things. I'm sorry. There's just...
Oh, the club, like the club membership and the club you hit with. The PGA of America is this network
Like,
of
there's
local...
more words in the English language. Do they not know this? Sorry, keep going.
So a few times a year, these tour pro guys that work at the courses... No, sorry, I'm even confusing with... A few times a year, the pros get a chance to sort of play tournaments that might allow them onto the PGA Tour to play those bigger money events. But mostly these guys just have very normal business jobs where they have to operate a golf course.
Interesting.
And also happen to be really good enough to get the designation of PGA Tour America Pro. I always thought this was kind of funny because these guys want to be paid for golf, but they end up bartending and taking phone calls for tea times and
they
bringing
basically
pizzas.
like work at a country club.
Yeah. Because I remember this distinctly growing up. There was a guy named Tony that worked at the Beaver Dam Country Club who was the golf pro, but like was the main guy working this relatively small golf course.
Because there's a lot of golf clubs.
Yeah.
So like in order to be like a PGA certified golf club, you have to have your like resident pro.
Yep.
That is so interesting.
Not exactly sure how that all works. But.
And like, I would imagine that most of those people are not actually on the path to becoming like famous professional golfers. They're just like, I like to play golf and I'm okay working at this country club.
Like the big thing was like our guy from Beaver Dam got the chance to play in the Greater Milwaukee Open, which is a pro event.
How did Tony do? Do you know?
I think he made the cut, which is like half.
Good for Tony.
Yeah. But yeah.
Do you think there's like, this is just where my brain's going. Do you think there's like a history of like the pro in, they're like artists in residence.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And they teach people a lot.
Yeah, they're like artists in residence. This is how artists get paid a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to write a play that you commissioned and I will also like teach playwriting workshops and whatever. It's like an artist in residence. It's a golfer in residence.
Okay.
What I was going to say is my brain just went to like the movie Dirty Dancing, which I know you haven't seen, which is a crime. I'm wondering if there's like a long history of like the wives of like the men who go to the golf club, like trying to sleep with like the resident pro.
I think that is generally right. I think that they are like king of the castle hierarchy in that club.
It's like big fish in a small pond.
Yeah, and these clubs are that.
Yes.
Like, we're not going to get into that, but like club drama,
I'm just picturing like the old white guys are like out on the course and like all the wives are like having like gin and tonics under an umbrella, and like Tony or someone like Tony is like delivering them like their sandwiches, and they're like, "Oh, Tony, how's your stroke?" Is that a thing?
Do you need help?
Yeah.
With your stroke?
Is that the right double entendre
God,
for like golf?
Yeah. Well, a stroke is...
I'm not asking if you liked it. I'm asking if it was accurate.
It works. It works.
All right. Let's let you move on.
Can I help with your hole in one?
Do you need a wedge?
What level wood do you have? 1, 2, or 3 wood?
Your caddy can join us.
Also, here's your appetizer. All right, now that you've gotten a tour, oh my God.
Of the PGA Tour?
Of the PGA Tour of America and the
other PGA
Tour, we're clear on that, right?
Just move on.
Okay. Now that I've given you that overview, I want to focus on one player today, and that player is named Greg Norman. Have you heard of Greg Norman?
No. He sounds like someone who would be your down the street neighbor growing up.
Here was a photo of Greg Norman.
He's like golf Larry Bird if he were also a magician.
Yep, exactly that. Norman
if Larry Bird was a golfer and a magician.
The magnificent Greg Norman.
What a horrible magician name. Like you're a little kid at your birthday party and they're like, we got a magician. The thrilling, the fantastic, the wondrous Greg Norman.
Norman is an Australian golfer who was successful and popular throughout the 80s and 90s. He won 89 tournaments in the professional level, including 2 major championships. Both of those were the British Open in 1986 and then the British Open in 1993. Do you know the 4 major golf tournaments?
Boy.
Any guesses?
The Masters?
Yeah, there's one. I just said one.
Open?
Yes, the British Open, now known as the Open, which you just said.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
The Masters, the British Open, the Triple Crown. Is that horses?
Crown Royal.
Crown Royal?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's alcohol.
Yep.
And the Green Gables. I don't know.
The U.S. Open and the PGA Championship are the other
they're
two.
boring names. Okay, go ahead.
Though Greg Norman only won 2 major tournaments, he was consistently ranked at the top of all players during his prime and during his career due to his many wins and high finishes. Like I was saying with the money stuff, like you get more money the higher you finish, regardless of if you won.
Right.
So he also gets points allocated for finishing high. So he didn't always win, he won a lot, but he always finished
strong.
So he was just considered one of the best people of that time.
Okay.
80s and 90s. I'll show you just a little bit of Greg Norman playing so you can get some sense of who this man is.
Well, I'm a very aggressive individual. When I have the opportunity of getting something, I go for it.
Greg Norman wins his third Australian Open Championship. It looks good. Right at it. And there it is.
But there are a lot of other players who have that same sort of aggression, but they don't have the nickname Shark. See? The things I used to tell them, I said, I'm going to be the best player in the world, and I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And they all look at you like, you'll never be that. They laugh at you, but they're the dreams you need. Everybody needs a dream.
Golfadile Dundee. Or the Shark.
So, yes, you caught that. His nickname is the Shark, shortened from the Great White Shark.
Okay.
A nickname given to him for his aggressive style of play.
Sure. Was the wardrobe that he wears considered extra for the time? Yes, but were all golfers dressing that way, or was it okay?
So he was known at the time and has been known throughout his life as a fashion guy.
Yeah,
and he liked dressing nice.
I love
on the course.
Cowboy hats and the
the Australian Outback hat.
Yeah,
and the striped.
Yeah,
sweaters.
He's also that shocking blonde hair. He looks like, I don't know, he could be in Duran Duran or something. What makes a golfer aggressive?
I actually wrote that down. That would be funny to talk about. So it's just he goes for the hole when other people would lay up maybe or take a less aggressive approach. It's hard to explain when you don't know golf.
Oh, I was just laughing at he goes for the hole.
We've created this and now we're in it. If the ball was close to the green, which is the putting area where the pin is, and instead of maybe just chipping it on and close, he would try to make it, even if it means going past.
I see.
He would.
He was a big risk, big reward guy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the best way to put it. So I have a list of Bleacher Report of other golf nicknames because I just thought that a shark for a golfer.
That's pretty funny.
Really funny. There are other golf names that also are funny because they're he's just a golfer. He's hitting the ball. Why is he named the Great White Shark? He's not an NBA player who's incredibly fast and athletic.
Yeah, the golfers also want to feel like they're
But some of the golf names are just making fun of the guy or just stating something obviously. I'll go through a couple of these. Ben Crenshaw, famous old golfer, Gentle Ben. Tim
Mr. Rogers.
Lumpy Heron. He's just a larger man.
Oh.
Craig the Walrus Stadler. Again, a larger guy with a mustache that looks
Christ.
Greg the Great White Shark Norman, we know that one. Eldrick Tiger Woods, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But Tiger, that was just his name growing up.
Mm-hmm.
We got Ernie the Big Easy Els.
Is he also a large man?
Yep. These guys are really on them. Jack the Golden Bear Nicholas.
Let me guess.
Nope.
Not the size of a bear.
I actually didn't know this one. Dustin the Cheetah Johnson. Fred Boom Boom Couples.
Where did that come from?
For the way the ball explodes off his club face. Boom boom.
Did he ever actually like shatter a golf ball?
No.
Okay.
Phil Lefty Mickelson. He's left-handed. And yeah, that's...
In general, the history of golf is men not pulling any muscles to be the least bit creative about anything.
Pretty much. So far, that's what we've learned.
But it sort of makes sense in that you have often complained throughout our relationship that a lot of the time when we're with like, you know, boomer aged men that you're just meeting for the first time or in like a family situation or whatever, people immediately are like, oh, tall.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's the first thing they want to say to you. And like they try to make like extensive conversation with you about your height.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah. I'm like, that's just what it is.
So I think it's just a natural impulse for like, I don't know.
That's the first nickname. Like, oh, hey, Tolly.
Yeah, like poor men. We've socialized them so badly. They treat each other like shapes.
Yes. Yeah. You look kind of like a triangle. I'm going to call you triangle.
Exactly.
Or pyramid if I'm getting creative.
Shapes are animals.
So going along with the shark name, he also created a brand of shark golf shirts. And my dad actually had a couple of these with that little shark logo.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, you might have.
Is it like where like the like Lacoste alligator would be?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody went through a weird little prep phase during the golden age of Hollister and
of course.
Abercrombie, and I never had a Lacoste shirt because those were expensive.
I had a Hollister shirt that said Hollister and was way too tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Layer it under another Hollister
Yeah,
shirt.
exactly. So the shirt thing, like having the shirt, sort of goes along with what you were saying about like having side hustles and side businesses and sponsorships and affiliations because you're only winning money and because of the preceding negotiations, you're allowed to, you know, have sponsors for yourself and like rep brands and all that kind of stuff. So big name golfers do this a lot. They're very much like independent contractors and they have a lot of side businesses. Greg Norman had his shirts, but Norman has always been a businessman and he's had his hands in a bunch of businesses.
Okay.
And he has an umbrella company. It's called the Greg Norman Company.
Okay.
It was formerly called Great White Shark Enterprises, which I can't say without laughing.
Yeah, it's a stupid name.
And that's still going very strong today. And I made a PowerPoint of his businesses.
Amazing.
Because I felt that this was the most efficient way to go through.
Oh my God, I just caught the title and the subtitle.
So the title of this is Greg Norman's Businesses, Everything Manly, and Some Other Things Too by Jim O'Connell.
Oh my God.
This is my first PowerPoint since
High school.
junior year of high school, maybe earlier.
What was that PowerPoint? Do you remember?
Oh God, probably like, it was probably before that and it was probably on like the jungle in general.
Sure.
Here are some animals from the jungle.
Oh, I thought you meant Upton Sinclair's The Jungle.
No, I'm going way back to like just a series of
The
snakes
jungle.
and things.
Yeah, no.
The python
Got it.
likes
Got it.
to eat other animals, including small monkeys.
It wasn't about factory workers' rights in Chicago.
Nope, just a presentation on animals.
Great.
Okay. And their habitats. So this is a PowerPoint of Greg Norman's businesses.
Awesome.
The first one, Greg Norman Golf Course Design.
Oh my God.
He is a designer of golf courses and works with prominent golf course designers to design
His
them.
logo's a little shark.
It is that shark. That's the
Great.
shark on the shirts. The Greg Norman Collection, aforementioned. Look at all this great athleisure.
Well, he's wearing a hat in the picture, but I don't see any hats for sale in this sampling.
Oh, they are.
Okay.
Very much so. Yep. If it exists, there's probably a shark logo on it and you can buy it. Greg Norman Estates. This is his daughter, I believe, who runs Greg Norman Estates, which is like his wine company.
Oh my God.
He's really into like fancy wines. Greg Norman Real Estate, because of course he has his hand in different real estate markets.
Yeah, of course he does.
Shark Wake Park.
What?
He has a couple different wakeboarding facilities where you essentially attach a rope to a wire and it pulls you.
I am familiar with the idea of wakeboarding.
Yeah.
I thought for a second that he was riding on a crocodile, which is just me making assumptions about people from Australia.
Yep. Shark Experience. I'm forgetting what some of these are. This is in golf carts. There's like a little screen with
in taxi cabs?
Yep, where you can like watch sports and listen to music and we'll look at the course.
Oh my God.
Greg Norman Eyewear.
Jesus Christ.
$134
He
sunglasses.
has diversified.
Greg Norman Australian Prime Wagyu steaks.
Stop it. Are you kidding me?
He's got a steak
He
brand.
has steaks?
He does. Greg Norman Australian Grill, which if you look at the menu...
Is this a restaurant
It's a restaurant chain.
No.
A couple different ones. A little bit high end.
Is it
Got
high?
that
I was
Aussie
about to
flair.
say, oh my
Lobster
God.
ravioli, spiced ahi tuna, and a daily fresh catch at market price.
Jesus.
So that's just some of them.
I wonder if it's like a joke in Australia to like go to a Greg Norman chain though.
It may just be popular there. I don't know.
I don't know. It's like if you say you're going to Outback Steakhouse, like Outback Steakhouse is great, but you also are like, we're going to Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah, I'm going to Norman.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So those are some of them.
Real entrepreneur.
And we're not fully done here.
Oh no.
We're not totally done here because Norman has other side businesses and there were a bunch of video clips because I went deep down YouTube. One of my favorite things to do when researching these is just to like type in Greg Norman on YouTube and just go down
Just see what it spits
and
out.
see like what we get down there. So we get this first. This is Greg Norman. He's very into watches. He's a watch collector.
Naturally.
High-end watches. And this is a little video about him talking about his watch collection.
Late in the afternoon sun, the reflection of the face of the watch would get on the putting green, so it would be a little bit distracting. So when I put it on my right arm, the reflection disappeared.
Oh, God.
That's what I learned when I was playing, and I was the first person to actually play golf with a watch on professionally. And at the end of the day,
Weird
each one of
flex.
those watches have really stood the test of time, no pun intended, because they've gone through a lot of impact, clubhead speed, a lot of weather conditions. So to see where they are today.
There's too many shots of him with his shirt off. Like way too many shots of him with his shirt off.
That clip.
Like the only reason is to like let people know. I'm assuming the watch is waterproof. If it's not even waterproof, then there's no reason for his shirt to be off at all.
Yeah, no, I think he's just going through his watch collection. So I
Gross.
think they just cut that in.
It's an excessive amount of this man's naked top.
He's by a pool and he's got a watch.
Oh my God. Also, weird flex, but okay. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I
He's
was the first golfer to wear a watch. What?
What? Professionally? No.
That can't be true. How would you even know that? Who is taking down that stat? Also, who cares?
Yeah. Lowest score in course history for a guy wearing a watch.
All of his businesses basically are like, I am a wealthy guy who really likes luxurious things. And I think he thinks he's having a lot of good ideas, but what he's really doing is being like, I really like being on boats. Should I release a line of boats? I can't do an Australian accent, and I will not continue to try.
Good. Probably good. Here's another one. This is Greg Norman workout videos.
No.
The exercise I'm about to show you really is an intense exercise, so really be careful and work out with a trainer first. It's all about your strength of your lower unit, your quads, your hamstrings, your abs, and obviously your upper body as well too. So this is really, really an intense workout. Really good for the golf swing, stability and strength all rolled into one with a little bit of flexibility too. So you get again in that really powerful position.
Is he just
Knees
going
bent
to
a
teach
little
us how to
bit.
do a
Watch how
chest
long he
fly?
does this.
Let your arms hang, and now you rotate up, hold it, come back down. Rotate up, hold it, come back down.
He like wants us. He's staring right at the camera.
Right at the camera.
He wants us to know he can do this.
And he's just doing all the reps.
Oh my God, he's still going. He's just breathing heavily and looking at the camera, starting to turn red.
And if you notice, my knees never moved. Like a golf
Yeah,
swing.
that's. I was not looking at your knee.
We noticed. And then lastly, I'm just throwing this in there. This is one of his golf courses in Vietnam.
Someone didn't line up the sound.
People travel to Vietnam for the landscape, culture, and the food.
Yes.
I travel here for all that, plus playing some of the best golf courses in the world. See you on the courses in Vietnam.
I mean, not to spend every single episode of this podcast just verbally beating the shit out of rich old white men, but and here's another. But like that is such a rich old white man thing to do, to be like, I love going to Vietnam, the food, the culture, but I'd really love to golf while I'm there too.
We don't have enough golf courses in Vietnam, so
like, okay.
I'll do that. All right. So
I mean, I will say he seems like an overall, I hope, I don't know, public facing, he does seem like a nice-ish man. Like he just seems, oh, your face. I'm going to stop talking.
we're going to continue.
He's not going to.
Greg Norman, nice guy.
No, don't quote me on that.
So heading back to the early 90s, now that we've taken a little business tour.
Okay.
Greg Norman has another business idea at this time for a series of professional golf tournaments that would take place all across the world in order to expand the game more globally.
Okay.
The new tour that he's proposing would be called something like the World Golf Tour, and would also offer super high prize pools, which would allow for more opportunities for these players to make money, like not necessarily tied to the PGA Tour.
Where is the money for this coming from?
Sponsors and stuff like
okay.
that. In 94, this new tour got some momentum and even had a Fox TV deal. So now I'm going to play a little clip from the Rich Eisen show, who's another sports radio guy.
Too many of those.
There's a lot of them. We are joining the fold.
I say as someone who just started a podcast.
Yeah. Rich Eisen show has a really good interview with Davis Love III, who's another professional golfer and a longtime rival of Greg Norman. Just doesn't like him for various reasons. This kind of being one of them. So here's a little clip about Greg Norman wanting to start up this league in 1994 through like 96 area.
Davis Love III here on the Rich Eisen Show. What happened in 1994? For those who may not be familiar, this is, and I guess I'm one of them.
It was a long time ago.
Yep.
for both of us. But in 1994, Greg proposed the World Tour, 30 top players, play the weeks before the majors. Yet the Fox network back then that didn't have any sports programming offered him a $25 million contract. It threatens the structure of the PGA Tour. We are a group of charitable golf tournaments around the country that are put on by Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus and Davis Love, Arnold Palmer's family. We own and operate these tournaments, not the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour is a vehicle for us to play under a brand like a league, like the NBA or the NFL. We're just a league of tournaments that raise money for charity and play for a big prize that week. And it's based on we're a tax-exempt organization that's growing the game and is built around our members. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough for Greg and for some other people, that they want their cake and eat it too.
The PGA Tour is a non-profit?
It is, technically, yes. So I'm going to say that Davis Love here is not telling the full story of like the PGA is just this great, perfect organization. They technically are operated that way, and everyone independently runs these tournaments, and like the money is for charity beyond the money that goes to like the people who ran it.
Yeah.
But like they have themselves in with weird sponsors and big business.
What a bunch of scammy geniuses, though, to be a tax-exempt organization, and you basically are like, well, other people set everything up, and some of the money goes to charity. So
yeah. So I don't know. I don't actually know all the inner workings of how they navigate that.
Sure.
But I will say that Davis Love only painting the PGA as this amazing thing is also very not true.
Yeah.
But what he said there about Norman is also true, that he wanted to create his own thing even back in 94.
Side note, I keep thinking they're going to say Jack Nicholson, the actor.
Yeah. And they say Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this was something that like confused me my whole life. So here's an article just sort of talking about that idea for Greg Norman's tour. And I'll just have you read the...
Okay. Golf pundits dump on world tour, Norman. Greg Norman, no stranger to controversy, has been subjected to a scathing attack in the latest issue of American Golf Digest. The longtime Norman critic Jerry Tardy has blasted the expatriate Australian for his role in the proposed world tour, which was announced in November with a fanfare, only to fail to receive the backing of most of the world's top players. Greg Norman's World Golf Tour is dead, Tardy starts a prominently placed column. Norman's tour was a bad idea, he writes. It would have turned the stability of professional golf into the chaos of professional boxing. Wow, that's a real... Okay, taking some hits at boxing. Tardy also turns his sights on another expatriate Australian, Rupert Murdoch, whose Fox television network was scheduled to televise the world tour. Pro Golf directly benefits charity, and I would rather have the profits going to cancer research than to Norman and partner Rupert Murdoch. The last thing golf needs is to have Rupert Murdoch in any position of power. Listen, I do not disagree with that take.
Totally agree. But once again, it's like, the PGA is also making money.
Yes.
Like, and all the people who play are making money. So
yeah,
Greg
they're
Norman,
trying to make it out to be like a lot more noble than it is.
And also Norman is very, as you've seen with his businesses, greedy and wants money. So they're not wrong either.
Well, it's not even just money. Okay, if you want money, you can do a bunch of businesses. Your businesses don't all have to mention your full name.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, no one loves Jeff Bezos, but it's not like he calls Amazon Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos' marketplace.
Bezos Investments.
Yes.
I mean, he basically does.
He basically does. They're synonymous, but you get what I'm saying here.
Yeah. So, yeah, like that article said, the PGA Tour pushes back and this Greg Norman League idea goes away. The investment money disappears. A couple years later, in 1996, the PGA announced a World Golf Championship tournament thing, which was a watered-down version of Norman's idea and basically felt like an extension of the PGA Tour, which Norman kind of wanted to avoid. He wanted it to be its own thing where they could like jack up the money and have it be its own opportunity, which he said was to grow the game. But the PGA basically does it with the World Golf Championship and like kind of takes his idea without him and does it within their system, doing a series of tournaments overseas and in other areas. But it's all basically PGA Tour events, not this separate thing.
Okay.
Greg Norman holds a grudge. I've read that he really holds a grudge, like seriously, and has always wanted to find a way to tear down the PGA Tour ever since this happened.
Don't you have stuff to do? You have like 15 businesses.
So many. Probably 50 businesses.
Like,
a little personal stuff on Greg Norman, just to throw it in there.
Did his wife leave him?
Yes.
He seems like the kind of guy his wife would leave him. I literally had that thought. I was like, we haven't said, I don't even know if Jim mentioned he was married, but I was like, as I was watching that video of him exercising, I was like, this seems like the kind of guy whose wife would leave him. If he happens to have one, I don't know for what reason, but.
Oh, you're getting too good at this already. So basically, his wife of a bunch of years.
Just a whole mess of years.
Had a particularly messy divorce with him.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In 2008, around then. And the reason was because he actually left her, I think, more than presumably, for Chris Evert, who was
the tennis player?
The famous tennis player.
Okay, quick side note about Chris. Is it Everett? Evert. Quick side note about Chris Evert. When I was like, probably like 11 or 12, I got really like into the idea of like becoming a tennis player. You know, like when you do when you're a kid and you just start a sport. I've been playing it for like 6 months, and Halloween was coming up, and I told my mom that I did not want to do my original costume idea that she had been planning for. I don't remember what it was. I wanted to be Chris Evert.
Amazing.
Who I had just heard about.
Do you have a photo of this?
No, I didn't go. I went as like my original. I remember being like, I am desperate to be Chris Evert for Halloween, even though I just found out who she was. And even though that's not really a Halloween costume because it's just a woman with a tennis racket.
Well, that sounds like a good costume if I was in college and needed a quick one. Here's a little story about this that fails to really mention that Chris Evert basically kind of moved in on this
was a
previous
bit of a homewrecker.
Lately, Greg Norman's private life has been very public indeed. But through it all, he and Chris Evert have kept quiet, tried to duck reporters' questions. Then came that interview with Norman's ex-wife Laura, the one where she gave them both an almighty spray. Maybe that changed Greg and Chris's mind. Maybe they just thought it was time. Whatever the reason, tonight you'll hear the untold story, their story, as they catch up with old pal Eddie Maguire. How and when they fell in love, their take on Laura and the bust-up, and their plans for the future.
Oh my God, fuck these people.
You
Seriously.
only need to spend a minute or two with Greg Norman and his new wife, Chris Evert, to get the message loud and clear.
Is that it? Well, we'll do another one.
See you later. See you on
They're
the
completely besotted with each other, and so in love, it seems nothing else matters.
All right, what's your face is making all sorts of faces.
Okay, I hate this. Not because I hate love. I understand that people find each other after they're already married to someone else, whatever. I hate this because it is so strategic and so obviously strategic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and especially knowing all the background about Greg Norman, it's like, of course, he just like called up all the powerful people he knows in television and was like, my ex-wife is a horrible person and I need to get the story straight that I'm actually deeply in love with Chris Evert and she loves me and everything's fine and my ex-wife sucks.
And my businesses should not suffer.
Yes.
Sort of.
It's so over the top strategic.
His PR guy was like, I have a connection to Aussie 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Let's go.
I know. Also, I don't know, something about some of the terminology that was used in that was just really funny. The like almighty spray. What does that mean? But yeah, no, I just hated that because it was so, I don't know, it's just such a like stupid PR move. The other thing that bothers me is like people in the public eye try to have this like redemption arc of like, yes, I committed infidelity, but true love came from it. And it's like, that doesn't excuse the bad part.
Right.
It just means a good part came out of it, but you still cheated.
So this good part in particular only lasted 15 months. And then they broke up.
Great.
Which, whatever, fine. Doesn't matter, but I just thought it was fun to mention.
Yeah, of course. He made this whole big fuss.
Yeah. Okay. Now, fast forward all the way to modern times.
2008 is not modern times.
Nope. 2019, early 2020.
I think I have some idea of what's coming.
When it was first made public that a new golf league by the name of Premier Golf League might be in the works.
Can we, any other letter? There's so many words that start
PGP. So the PGA immediately came out condemning the idea and saying they wouldn't let their players be involved in this.
Who was behind the PGL?
So this is sort of a league of like private partners, and the pitch was that there would be fewer holes per tournament, more money, and maybe some team play elements. And to answer your question, Saudi Arabia funding was part of this, but not all of it.
Fewer holes.
54 holes in the tournament instead of 72.
Where are you getting those from 18 and 9?
So a traditional tournament is 4 rounds, each of 18 holes, 72 total holes.
Okay.
And this was sort of proposed like, hey, we're putting too much strain on these guys. It's a lot to ask for that long. Let's do 3 rounds for the weekend, a little less stress on their bodies and time. And that was part of the proposition. And like I said, Saudi Arabian funding was behind this, and a bunch of other investors sort of talking about what if we did another golf league. Phil Mickelson, around this time, he is basically the second to Tiger throughout our entire life. Is the best way I kind of describe him. Like Tiger's the best golfer ever. Mickelson's probably top 10 ever. Like so good.
Yeah. And he's like, he's had a pretty long career.
Super long career.
Like he's still playing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's seen playing in an event with a bunch of Saudi Arabian backers who support this new league. Let me just show you a picture of Phil because I have it for the people watching.
Phil Mickelson has always struck me personality and looks wise as like, you're growing up like your friend's dad who you just wouldn't want to get in a conversation with because he would just talk your ear off. You know what I mean?
That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have written here that Phil should get his own episode, and we don't have time for this, but he's rival to Tiger and a very good golfer, and kind of seen in the golf world as one of the legends of our time. Quickly upon hearing about Phil playing in an event where some of these PGL people were there, Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner or whatever, says that PGA pros won't be allowed in any offshoot league. Around this time, Rory McIlroy, another golfer, modern popular golfer, is talking to the media and positions himself as a major opposition to any idea of a new tour. A real PGA stand for life. Here's a clip of Rory talking to the media that just sort of introduces you to him.
The reason I said what I said is because we were in Mexico a couple of weeks ago, and some people decided not to go. But that was their choice. That was the freedom that they had. They have autonomy over their schedule, and they can pick and choose when and where they want to play. Where if we go to this new league, that's not going to be the case. You're going to be contracted to play 18 events. They're going to tell you where and when you should be there. And as a golfer and an independent contractor, I didn't like the sound of that. Didn't really like where the money was coming from either. And I wanted to be the first one to speak out against it. And I'm glad that I have. I'm glad that I've done that.
Rory McIlroy seems like, I don't know if it's the Northern Irish accent or just like his features or whatever, but he just seems like a kind, loyal, good-hearted, good-moraled man.
And he says as much in that.
He does.
In response to these talks, the PGA announces a player impact program. It's a $40 million prize pool that will award players who bring value to the tour as an attempt to dissuade people from leaving.
What do you define as bringing value to the tour?
This is interesting. It's like people with big social media followings, people who have shown their like brand loyalty to the PGA Tour, get these like bonuses written into their contract now.
Okay.
If they meet certain stipulations, play a certain amount of events, they get this bonus money. Just an extra little like, hey, if you're thinking about going to this other tour for big, crazy money that they're talking about.
What I love about this is like how people handle beef in the non-golf world is like have a conversation, maybe a physical fight, like whatever. And the way that golf and like corporate America, and also having worked for a nonprofit for many years, people in these positions handle beef by being like, we're gonna start a new campaign.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
that will fix it.
Yeah, it's like, come on, guys.
So despite this new proposition and the talks under the table, there's a report in the Telegraph that as many as 11 top tour pros have been given offers by a new league. According to groundbreaking reporting, the Telegraph says as many as 11 leading tour pros have received offers of between 30 and 50 million to join the PGL, redubbed the Super Golf League. The names DeChambeau, Johnson, Fowler, Rose, and Koepka, along with others, were chief among them. Also, Phil Mickelson has reportedly been offered $100 million to lead the charge.
And this is for the rival
PGL. Yes. Somewhere around here, the Premier Golf League, or the Super League of Golf, sort of splits off And all of these people who are going to something end up getting offered, what they actually were offered was to join a tournament tour called LIV Golf.
Yes, I have heard this term a lot recently.
This new rogue golf league has a CEO. And that CEO is none other than our guy, Greg Norman.
Oh my God. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
So LIV, do you know what that stands for? The through line of this episode is just acronyms and bad names. So
let me take a guess. Life is very good. I don't know. What is it?
It could have been that, but it's not an acronym at all. It is the Roman numeral for 54.
Shut up. Oh my God.
LIV is the Roman numeral for 54.
It's also Liv Tyler's first name. So.
And the number of holes in a LIV golf tournament instead of 72.
I honestly am shocked that Greg Norman agreed to be in charge of this without his name being.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm surprised that LIV doesn't stand for, like, I don't know, Greg Norman translated into another language or something.
So I don't exactly know what went on here, but apparently the people or some of the people who were involved in PGL didn't love that the Saudi people were backing this because it's sort of blood money and from a country that has a terrible track record.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think, where they split. Some people split off and they made it LIV instead of PGA. Like there was some backroom stuff going on where it was all one thing, this Saudi league. But then when certain people realized, like, I don't really want to be involved with these people, they made LIV, I think.
Okay.
And that's when Norman got his hands in there. The Saudi-backed league gives Norman basically a limitless budget to use as an incentive to get new players. And we still haven't heard anything at this point about players moving until February of 2022 rolls around. And it's the Riviera PGA Tour event. And murmurs start getting around that some 24 PGA Tour pros have possibly committed to taking money from the Saudis and joining LIV. The interviews at this Riviera tournament basically turned into declarations of allegiance to the PGA Tour or a vague dodging of questions from people.
I think I remember you watching some of this, actually, yeah.
The lines in the sand start getting drawn where like people are sort of joining Rory, who has already said like no way to any of this. And then some people, their names are on a list.
He's kind of been like the lead spokesperson for the PGA side of things, correct? Okay.
As these tensions are rising, all of a sudden, a little segment of an interview that Phil Mickelson did with a reporter, Alan Shipnuck, who was writing a book on Mickelson, was released. So this like little snippet of his book. Up to this point, it's mostly Greg Norman putting his spin on things, saying he has big things to come. And then this gets posted, and I'm going to have you read this little thing about Phil Mickelson.
Mickelson told me he had enlisted 3 other top players he declined to name, and they paid for attorneys to write SGL's operating agreement, codifying that the players would have control of all the details. He didn't pretend to be excited about hitching his fortunes to Saudi Arabia, admitting the SGL was nothing more than what he called, quote, sports washing by a brutally repressive regime. They're scary motherfuckers to get involved with, he said. We know they killed Jamal Khashoggi and have a horrible record on human rights. They execute people over there for being gay. Knowing all of this, why would I even consider it? Because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reshape how the PGA Tour operates. They've been able to get by with manipulative, coercive, strong-arm tactics because we, the players, had no recourse. As nice a guy as PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan comes across, unless you have leverage, he won't do what's right. And the Saudi money has finally given us that leverage. I'm not sure I even want the SGL to succeed, but just the idea of it is allowing us to get things done with the PGA Tour. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
There's so much in there.
No moral compass here.
No. And also, that is such absurd logic to be like Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabian government is incredibly corrupt and are committing human rights violations all the time. And I want nothing to do with them. But they're helping us start a dialogue with the PGA Tour. It's like, what?
Yeah. They're helping us get more money.
Like, I'm willing to compromise all of my ethics and morals for money and also to stick it to Jay Monahan. Is that his name?
Yeah.
No.
So
come on, Phil.
This is actually a win for the PGA Tour and players who are considering leaving.
Yeah, because it makes him look horrible.
And so all the people whose names have been thrown around with maybe leaving are like, whoa, this is really sketchy. And around this time, Phil Mickelson announces that he's taking time away from golf, and he doesn't say when he'll play again. So he also, this isn't written down, but I read this too. He then tried to come out and say that this was off the record, and he never said any of this stuff to this guy, of course.
Living with the consequences of the choices you make is exhausting, and sometimes you need to take time off to deal with it.
So around this time, February 2022, Jay Monahan has a mandatory players meeting and says people can leave the PGA, but if they do, they might face a lifetime ban. And after that, Greg Norman fires off a letter, which I was going to have you read, but it's boring, where he basically is like, not so fast. You're going to like try to control these independent contractors. Who's to say they can't golf, where they can golf, blah, blah, blah.
They're talking about these people as if they make no money.
Yeah.
I understand the idea that as independent you and I are independent contractors in our field, that as independent contractors, you want people to have rights. But this whole time, Greg Norman's whole thing is his PR team gives him a lot of things to say that are reasons for doing what he does. But they're not. Yeah. That's not why. He doesn't give a shit about golfers as independent contractors.
Or growing the game globally.
Which doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Which literally is a phrase that means nothing.
Yeah. So this has all been a lot. And so we're not done yet. But I put a palate cleanser in here. And this is just alligators on the PGA Tour.
Yes!
Encountering golf balls and things.
Got the long pole there with the broom on the end.
What is that going to do?
We have had
Shepherd
gators
the gator
of all sizes, shapes, legs out on the course, and this guy needs to go back to his seat in the water.
God, they really look like dinosaurs.
Welcome to National Geographic, ladies and gentlemen.
I think every golf tournament should have a dangerous animal element. Or a funny animal element. Like you and I watched, because I asked you, I like to ask Jim inane sports questions. I don't think they're inane. It's just what comes up. I asked if anybody had injured a bird while hitting a golf ball. And you were like, actually, a lot of bird things have happened. And it was a very funny video of like birds like dropping fish they were carrying on the course or just like waddling onto the course.
So you would propose that there's like some wild cat or ostrich or something
there's
at every...
we have the flora. We need the fauna. Okay, we've got sand traps. We've got water features, whatever. I want there to also be an animal.
Rattlesnakes in those sand traps?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, alligators are kind of perfect because even though they're super dangerous and scary, they're also kind of doofy looking.
Yeah.
And just seeing one just like get hurried along the course, but with like a mop.
It is funny because you want to respect an alligator that can like eat you.
Yeah.
But also you're like, there's a lot of them and we need to continue golfing.
It's just so funny. Everybody's so chill about it. They're like, oh, there's a gator on the fairway again.
Yeah. So that was a palate cleanser. I hope you appreciated that.
I loved it. I loved it the most.
So now we're going a month ahead, March 2022.
Okay.
LIV Golf officially announces a slate of 8 events set to launch in London. In May of 2022, Norman said that 19 of the top 100 players in the world have actually joined LIV, and the PGA does not give approval for any of them to do this.
They need approval?
Yeah, they got to ask their dad.
Can I go golf somewhere else? Can I go golf for the Saudis, Dad?
No, you'll golf on my course. Later that month, Dustin Johnson, one of the top players in the world, is announced as the first huge name to join LIV. But 6 spots have not been announced from these people that they're teasing or whatever. In June of 2022, Phil Mickelson comes back from his break announcing that he will join LIV for $200 million.
Oh my God, what a surprise.
The first LIV event in London happens, and a few more big players are announced, including young star, Mr. Businessman, Bryson DeChambeau.
I don't like him.
Here's a clip of Bryson.
So it was a business decision, first and foremost, and that's all there was to it. It's given me a lot more opportunity outside of the game of golf and giving me more time with my family and my future family. So for me, that was a decision.
Was the business decision basically money-driven? Is that what you're talking about?
There was a lot of financials to it and a lot of time as well. So I get to have a life outside of the game of golf as well.
You want to play on the PGA Tour again?
I would love to. It would be an honor.
How do you see this ending for you?
I see myself playing a lot of golf, hopefully creating a lot of great entertainment for golf fans, and give myself a lot of free time for myself.
I'm getting really exhausted watching men lie.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
So
that's all I'll say to that.
Sort of wraps everything that the golfers are saying that are joining in one interview. Like, it's a business decision. It's less holes and less tournaments, so therefore I don't need to be there. It's a family decision. It's a growing the game of golf worldwide decision. Then Brooks Koepka, even bigger than Bryson DeChambeau, another huge name, joins LIV. In July of 2022, LIV hosts an event at Trump Bedminster in New Jersey, linking the tour to Donald Trump for the first time publicly. And they had already talked about him being involved. But here's a little clip that is one of the most cursed clips ever, which is Tucker Carlson interviewing Greg Norman at Trump Bedminster about Trump.
What's Donald Trump's connection? He seems like a supporter. We haven't talked to him about it, but we're at his golf club right now.
Yeah. I've known Donald for a long time. I played golf with him before he was president. And I've done golf courses that he's acquired, right? So his passion for the game of golf is as passionate as he's been a president where stars and stripes flow through his blood, right? It's the same with golf. He loves his golf. And he sees the commercial opportunity of what golf can give him, right? Trump Bedminster is no different, right? The membership here is full. It's a commercial entity for him. It's an operation where he can make some revenue out of it. So when we first started, obviously as the startup, we needed venues. He had heard about it. We were in discussions with him, and we just negotiated a venue fee with him here.
So there it is. Norman Trumper, and in business with Trump, Greg Norman, who puts his name on everything. Donald Trump, who puts his name on everything. Very similar.
You know, I didn't want to bring up Donald Trump because I never want to bring up Donald Trump. But I almost said this guy feels kind of Trumpy at one point when you were just introducing me to Greg Norman. And I was like, let's get through one episode without Donald Trump coming up.
Yep, but there it is. And then finally I have here Cameron Smith is one of the latest big names. He's another big golfer and actually Australian following Greg Norman into LIV. I have a really good clip just that sort of sums this up. We're almost to the end.
Okay.
From that same Davis Love III interview with Rich Eisen talking about this whole thing. And I just thought it's like puts it in a good perspective.
What do you think about the state of play right now with the LIV Golf Tour and the PGA Tour, Davis Love III?
Well, it's unfortunate that we have a rift in our game that was brought on by, a Hall of Famer that came from Australia with a dream, and now he's challenging that platform that gave him the opportunity to become the great white shark. So it's very strange. Another kid from outside the U.S., Rory McIlroy, wanted to play on the PGA Tour and win a bunch of tournaments and win majors, and he came over and did that, and now he's on the board of the PGA Tour, and he's making the rules and leading the charge to grow the game. So a lot of the things that they're claiming are kind of hollow. It's all about the money.
The Saudis are like, here's $1 gajillion. Yep. Go get as many star players who are willing to take our money as possible.
More where that came from.
And there's more where that came from. We don't care if we lose it because the whole idea is to make you forget everything that we've done in the past so you can come and do business with us. And that's what the concept of sports washing is called. And you cannot deny the money, because the Canadian Open that's going on right now on the PGA Tour, for instance, whoever wins it will get $1.566 million. Whoever wins the LIV Golf Tour and negotiates the golf course in just 54 holes, because it's just 54 holes, 3 days and out, and it's 4 hours on the course. It's not some long-ass day. You get $4 million. So you'd have to probably go, if to get $4 million, you need to win the next 3 PGA Tour tournaments in a row.
You know, I don't claim to be really good at things involving money, but when you have $1.6 million, is having $4 million that different?
We would never know, but yes, to them.
Yeah, you can't deny the money, but selling your soul to the devil has a benefit to you, obviously, or you wouldn't do it.
So he also talked about sports washing in that part of the clip. Meaning sort of like Saudi Arabia using high-profile sports leagues, they've done this with soccer too, to sort of be like, oh, Saudi Arabia is involved in this. They back it.
Well, we just had that with the World Cup with Qatar.
Qatar, yeah. Like, hey, look, we host worldwide sports events.
Yeah.
Look here, not here.
I mean, we've just come too far as like information sharing goes for this to be successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not in a moment of time where like you can be like, oh, I read the newspaper and it seems like Saudi Arabia is bad, but then I turned on the TV and golf.
It seems like they're good.
Like, there's too much information available
for that to really work.
Unless you want it to be sports washed and you're like, I just want to watch golf. I don't care about the larger context.
On enough people to watch that and be like, well, all the good players are over there.
There will be enough people, sadly.
One last clip of Greg Norman just to show just how little he cares.
I think some of your players were asked at a press conference, well, if Vladimir Putin wanted to set up a golf tour,
oh God,
would you allow that to happen? Would you want to be involved in that? In other words, is there a moral line that Greg Norman wouldn't cross?
My moral line is I believe in the product. My moral line is I've been a big, staunch promoter of growing the game of golf on a global basis. My moral line is golf is the force for good. So I am so proud to be in this role, Piers. I really am, because my whole life, somebody asked me a question the other day, Greg, do you think this is going to affect your legacy? And I said to him, you know what? Maybe my legacy on the golf course is not my legacy. Maybe my true legacy is what we're doing with LIV for the game of golf and giving this opportunity to collegiate players, to eventually to women, to the guys we have today, to be a true competitor.
Eventually to women.
So yeah, he just immediately pivots to it's about the product when asked, what about sports washing? What about...
Like, just be honest and be like, my moral line is capitalism, so it doesn't exist.
Yeah. All right, so we're getting very close to the end. In 2023, this year, the Masters that just happened, Greg Norman was not invited to the tournament.
Good.
However, LIV players were allowed to play in the Masters because it's not a PGA Tour official event. The majors are not. And that's now kind of where we're at. Basically, the majors have agreed to allow LIV players in for now. The PGA Tour has not struck any sort of deal with LIV to allow this open flow back and forth. And I just wanted to show you a little bit of what LIV is doing for the game of golf with its sort of high-octane, bro-fueled league that it's creating, which is kind of their whole thing. They're 54 holes, high-level players playing on teams instead of individually, but there's like teams of 4. And it's trying to basically have a drunk frat house vibe at all these events.
Cocaine and Monster energy drinks and
Michelob Ultra. So he hits the ball
Koepka, 12,
on a short hole.
watering hole. He's posing. Oh, yeah. Oh,
and he hits a hole in one.
Oh! There it is! There it is!
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
We promised you an ace on 12. And
Describe what you're seeing.
People are throwing things on the... and it's not a field. They're throwing things on the grass, whatever part of the grass this is, the course, and cheering, and there's like graphics, and water being sprayed. And this is the most commotion I have ever seen in a golf game ever.
Exactly. So basically,
it's like the XFL of golf.
Yeah. They're trying to kind of paint this like, this is fun. It's crazy, high octane.
When
Bros
is
who
Vince
like golf.
McMahon going to get involved in this? It kind of seems like his thing, doesn't it?
If he's not already, he might be. I didn't see his name yet. So as this golf season heats up, the LIV and the PGA are still dueling, and this is still going on. And there's no sign of a merger or a deal between Norman and his rival PGA anytime soon. And we'll definitely have to come back to this at some point to do a follow-up. If you're watching us, you'll notice we just switched into a new studio. We had to move, and there'll be more on this in our first full episode in this studio. But for now, we're cutting back into this episode because there's been an important update that happened after we filmed the first version of PGA versus LIV, Greg Norman's.
There's been more drama.
Yep. On June 6th, this past June, the PGA and LIV announced that they would combine their assets along with those of another golf league called the DP World Tour into one.
Oh, I didn't know about the DP World
Yeah, it's
Tour.
another little sort of...
They don't matter.
Basically.
Nobody cares about that.
There's sort of another world,
I see.
like Worldwide Golf League. So yeah, so all that we covered about the feud that could go on forever is just over.
Kind of. It was just kind of awkwardly, I don't know, they just kind of smushed them all together and everybody all of a sudden was like, we were mad, but I guess it's fine now.
So the PGA Tour will remain a nonprofit and retain control of how the tournaments are played. But the business side of things, like the TV rights and the actual thing that makes a lot of money, will be owned by this new for-profit entity, mostly owned by the Saudi Public Investment Fund that funded LIV. So what happened was they presented a ton of money and said, we're going to keep making your life awful, PGA, unless we get this together and just combine it to one and you let us into golf.
And we'll stop making your life awful and we'll give you a lot of money.
Yep. The only things we really know so far are there's a deal to cancel all litigation that was happening between PGA and LIV.
Like, there was actual litigation.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There was a bunch of suits going on about people from LIV suing PGA for not allowing them to play and blah, blah, blah. So all that goes away as part of this. Monahan, the PGA commissioner guy, said there's only a framework agreement, not a real agreement yet. So basically nothing has been decided of how this will actually work, what parts of LIV will be part of PGA. So LIV players are kind of taking a victory lap because they got paid for joining LIV, like huge sums of money, and now they'll get folded back into PGA. So they kind of
got what they wanted, yeah.
And I'll end this little update and then we'll cut back into the end of the episode. But I wanted to just show you a little clip of Rory talking about this that kind of sums up where he's at.
Okay.
And Rory, for everybody, Rory McIlroy is like sort of the PGA's figurehead, stand-in as the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Should the golfers who maybe stayed loyal and turned down LIV, should they be made whole financially?
I mean, the simple answer is yes. The complex answer is how does that happen? Right? And that's all gray area and up in the air at the minute. But yeah, there's, it's hard for me to not sit up here and feel somewhat like a sacrificial lamb and, feeling like I've put myself out there and this is what happens. Again, removing myself from the situation, I see how this is better for the game of golf. There's no denying that. But for me as an individual, yeah, there's just going to have to be conversations that are had.
Keep it classy, Rory.
He got kind of screwed here.
He did. He put himself out there and as like a spokesperson for the PGA. And then they just sort of were like,
backroom deals.
Sorry, buddy.
Bye. Now that you've heard the story of the PGA versus LIV versus all these other entities and Greg Norman versus the PGA, how would you portray this story in media, drama?
Okay, so this is going to be portrayed as like a theme park performance at one of Greg Norman's chain restaurants that I'm assuming will eventually get turned into like like a Waystar Royco theme park.
Yeah.
Like from Succession. You know how like if you go to a theme park, you're like, oh shit, we happen to be like near this stage and now there's going to be like a performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to be like a musical, like a 15-minute musical celebration of like all of Greg Norman's accomplishments. And it's going to be heavily branded.
Okay. Good.
So it's a bunch of struggling actors in Australia who are like, yeah, I'm performing in like the Greg Norman Spectacular at his water park.
Yeah. What's the name of the closing number?
Greg Norman.
What about the opener?
Greg Norman.
Okay, good.
Greg Norman's opener and Greg Norman's finale.
But somewhere in the middle, there's got to be a shark song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When he gets his nickname.
Yes.
For being so aggressive.
Yes.
Okay. Well, how do you feel about this?
I hate Greg Norman.
Good. In the end here, we want to wrap up by saying thank you for listening and watching. Follow us on social media if you haven't yet, and watch us on YouTube if you're listening, and vice versa. Anything else?
Hole in one.